With the release of some of the most broken characters in the game, like Columbina, Zibai, and Ineffa, along with the entire Lunar archetype, the endgame had to get tougher. Enemy HP has clearly increased in recent Abyss rotations to match these stronger units. And while that might be exciting for players who enjoy difficult content, it can be a complete nightmare for anyone who was already struggling before. With the recent HP inflation, clearing the Spiral Abyss can feel almost impossible. So, in this video, we are going to cover everything you need to clear Abyss faster, more efficiently, and more consistently. Let's start with the most important factor: DPS. As I mentioned, enemy HP in Abyss has increased significantly, which means the DPS requirement is now much higher than before. So, which DPS units can still meet that bar? Let's start with 4-star options. Honestly, right now, there are only 3 real 4-star DPS characters that can consistently match the current Abyss standards: Sethos, Gaming, and Ineffa. These 3 are currently the strongest 4-star DPS units in the game, especially at Constellation 6. Let's talk about them one by one. Starting with Ineffa. Ineffa is the newest among the 3. He's an Anemo DPS who deals the majority of his damage as Anemo. Right now, his strongest team is a premium setup with Columbina and Ineffa. For the 4th slot, you can use someone like Sucrose, or Aurorn, or Eonson. Now, yes, that's a very premium composition, and honestly, that kind of team can clear Abyss with almost any DPS. But focusing on Ineffa's personal damage potential, he can also be played in more accessible setups. For example, you can run him with Bennett and Xiangling in a mono pyro team, or with Aurorn and Xingqiu in an electro charge team. For artifacts, he prefers a full Obsidian Codex set. For weapons, any strong attack or crit option works. The good thing about Ineffa is that he doesn't require a dedicated healer, since he has self-healing in his kit. Even though he has multiple team options, his best performing setups are usually electro-charged or lunar charged teams, thanks to his passive buffs and strong electro supports like Aurorn and Eonson. Now let's talk about Gaming. Gaming is arguably the strongest 4-star DPS right now, and he offers multiple viable team archetypes. He can run melt teams with Sitlali, vaporize teams with Farina, and if you have C6 Chevreaux, you can even build him for overload compositions. All of these teams are capable of clearing Abyss with enough practice and proper investment. Gaming can be mechanically demanding to play well, but his ceiling is very high. For artifacts, you have several strong options: Marechaussee Hunter, Crimson Witch, and even the newer Long Night Oath set for Melt and Vape compositions. For main stats, in Melt and Vape teams, you usually want an Elemental Mastery Sands, while in Overload teams, you prefer an Attack Sands. Finally, Sethos. One of the most underrated DPS units in the game, but incredibly strong, especially at C6. Sethos scales heavily with Elemental Mastery, so his best teams are Electro-Charged and Hyperbloom, both elemental scaling reaction teams. You can pair him with nod-krai supports like Lauma, Ineffa, and Columbina, benefiting from Silken Moon buffs and additional reaction bonuses. He received massive indirect buffs from the nod-krai expansion, because almost every new support synergizes extremely well with him. So if you're lacking character variety or missing a strong DPS in a specific element, investing into one of these 3 4-star units is absolutely a viable way to clear the current Abyss more comfortably. Now, let's talk about premium options. The first half of nod-krai is almost over, and we've seen most of the characters, so let's talk about the best investments specifically for clearing Abyss. Right now, the 3 most broken units in the game are Lauma, Ineffa, and Columbina. These 3 are currently the best units you can invest in if your goal is to clear Abyss consistently. Lauma solves almost all your dendro-related problems. Ineffa solves your electro-related problems. And if you pair either of them with Columbina, you can elevate almost any DPS on your account to the next level. I personally always prefer pulling supports over DPS, because in Genshin, supports are just too broken. For example, Lauma can be paired with any Dendro DPS, or even played alongside someone like Kinich, thanks to her Dendro Resistance Shred and the ability to hold TTDS. She can also function in Hyperbloom or Burgeon teams with numerous characters. Meanwhile, a unit like Nefer is heavily restricted to Columbina and Lauma. Without them, her performance drops significantly. So for every free-to-play player, I always recommend prioritizing supports. Even me, I was fully free-to-play until version 6.3. I didn't even buy Welkin, and I chose to pull Lauma, Columbina, and Ineffa instead of Flynn's or Nefer, and that decision worked perfectly. Whenever I need Lunar Charge, I just add Ineffa. When I need Lunar Bloom, I add Lauma. And now, with Columbina, those teams have become even more broken. Honestly, I'm not even planning to pull Nefer or Flynn's. I only pulled Zibai because I didn't have any Geo DPS, and I was forced to use Columbina whenever I needed Lunar Crystallize. So I hope that makes the point very clear. Apart from those three, Mavica looks like the next best pull for Abyss. She can function as a main DPS or as a pure buffer and off-field damage dealer, which makes her an insanely flexible option. I would suggest trying to get at least 2 characters out of these 4, Lauma, Ineffa, Columbina, and Mavica, to significantly improve your future Abyss consistency. I would not really recommend pulling older Notland DPS anymore, unless you desperately need a DPS and don't have any strong options. Newer DPS units are generally better investments. Now, let's talk about team building. To build a strong Abyss team, you absolutely need properly built 4-star supports. Starting with Animo, Sucrose is one of the most valuable units in the game. She provides elemental mastery buffs, resistance shred, and can hold TTDS. She fits into an insane number of teams and is a must-build unit. For Geo, there isn't really a universal buffer worth building, unless you have Zibai. In that case, Iluga and Garou become essential. For Electro, this is one of the most broken elements right now. Fischl, Kuki Shinobu, and Eonson are among the best Electro supports and are must-build units for almost every account. Auroron is also a great option if you need a sub-DPS. For Dendro, among 4-stars, Yao Yao is currently the only strong option if you need a Dendro healer for Nefer teams or Hyperbloom compositions. For Hydro, Xingqiu and Aino are currently some of the most used units in the game. For Pyro, Bennett, Shangling, and Chevreuse are extremely strong. Shangling is one of the best off-field damage dealers. Bennett fits into almost any attack scaling team, and Chevreuse is currently the best overload support in the game. For Cryo, there really isn't a 4-star unit right now that competes with the ones we just mentioned in terms of universal value. All of these 4-stars are must-build units, at least level 80 with level 8 talents, and they will make your Abyss runs significantly smoother. Some units might look useless to you right now, but they become incredibly valuable in future metas and give you far more flexibility when dealing with different enemy lineups. I hope this helped. I made this video to give you a clear idea of which characters are actually working in the current meta, especially after the massive HP inflation in Abyss. Make sure you're subscribed for more updates. Till then.